Okay. Sehr viel, was da in der Umkleide hängt. Hier ist sie, hier liegt sie. Sie hat einen Stift in der Hand, okay. Und ein Glas, was ausgeschüttet ist. Ist hier irgendwas Interessantes drin? Sieht nicht so aus. Hier hat sie ihre Masken. Oh, und hier ist diese Handtasche, ne? Die aus dem ersten Teil, wo das eine Glas drin war, was durchsichtig war letztendlich. Okay. As I understand it then, the victim and the defendant were alone inside the beach hut at the time. This is deeply troubling, I must say. The finger of guilt points firmly at the defendant. Well, Your Excellency, naturally the prosecution has much more to its case. We intend to prove the accused's appalling actions beyond all possible contention. To that end, I can confirm that we have multiple witnesses to the crime, and damning evidence. Witnesses? But who? One of whom, I might add, is a highly respected police detective. Hosonaga? I assure you, the testimony of these witnesses will leave no room for doubt. Is this Hosonaga, the detective? Very well then, Counsel. Bring forth your witnesses. I, Takatsushi Aochi, have been waiting for this moment. Sorry? Oh yes, I haven't forgotten. That trial 9 months ago, here in this very courthouse. When that irreverent little student boy utterly humiliated me. Ach ja, stimmt, hatte ja eine andere Frisur. Ah! Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Well, yes? This insight to the Aochi family name will never be forgotten. You've become conceited with age, Counsel, but the old have to stand aside and make way for the new. Das war eine coole Szene. It's the way of the world. May you never forget that. Nicer cut. Strike the head of a samurai whose top knot has been cut, and the bell of cultural enlightenment tolls. Yes, on that fateful day, my former self died. The start of your own mini Meiji revolution. Are you modernizing as well, Counsel? Silence! Since I swore revenge back then, there has been a minor miracle atop my head. Observe the Aochi growth. You see this seed of hope sprouting forth from the barren expanse of my crown? Sieht das bescheuert aus. I think that tiny growth is trying to tell me something. I'm afraid I can't really see. Where's the hope exactly? I said silence! Today, I face another young student of the Naruto clan. Well, I will vanquish you. Oh money. And my victory will be fertilizer for the seed of hope atop my head. You have been warned. With that, the prosecution calls the witnesses to the stand. It looks like the stakes are high on both sides of this trial. The prosecution and the defense each has much to lose. A haircut is hardly comparable to Rei's life. Eyes up! Eyes up! Natsume! Natsume ist wieder da! Ja! Soseki Natsume! Ich muss sagen, ich mochte den Charakter sehr. Soseki Natsume. Kann sein, weil er ein Englischstudent ist. Aber ja, ich mochte ihn sehr. Und halt Hosonaga. Es ist tatsächlich Hosonaga auch. Aber Natsume, als ob Natsume hier wieder auftaucht. Witnesses, please state your names and occupations for the court. Chief Inspector Satoru Hosonaga, Imperial Police Bureau. I'm in disguise, obviously, so I can go undetected. Die Schildkröte auf seinem Kopf. Die Schildkröte auf seinem... Alter, ist das genial. Ist das genial. And I am, well, the next big thing in books. An author renowned throughout the capital, in fact. Yes. Soon to be sold out the satirical I Am a Cat, a sensational success by Soseki Natsume. Wer ist das im Hintergrund? Alter. Soon to be sold out, the satirical I Am a Cat, a sensational success by Soseki Natsume. Oh my goodness. Struggling student from the provinces, please, you needn't be in awe of me. I needn't? It's only natural that you'd feel nervous in my presence, but all of you, please relax, call me Soseki even. Yes. What on earth is Soseki-san doing here? Treat carefully, Susato. That author fellow knows you from your time in London, doesn't he? If he exposes you for who you really are, this will be over before it's begun. Yes, of course, I know. I presume Soseki-san won't have forgotten about me. I could certainly never forget him. Although he does seem to have changed somewhat in the 6 months or so that it's been since I last saw him. And as for Inspector Hosonaga, that amazing outfit is hard to believe. Do I have something on my face? Well, your glasses for one. Although they don't seem to be helping, you see. Thank goodness he hasn't recognized me either. Ah, I suppose it's this disguise, is it? I thought that appearing here in the clothes I was wearing at the time would make for a more faithful testimony. It is my guiding principle to carry out all testimonies flawlessly. Well, I can appreciate why an Imperial Police Bureau detective might have been present. But what business did a writer such as yourself have being at the scene, Soseki-san? Ah, well, you see, I had been asked that day to give a lecture on the morning of the incident in the Imperial Yume University's Grand Lecture Hall, no less. At Yume University? After the lecture, I had a very pleasant conversation with a researcher from the medical science department. The professor over there, in fact. With Professor Mikotoba. Yes, that's right. It was arranged by one of the newspapers. They wanted some story or other about 2 former students who'd studied in Great Britain. Of course, being a renowned author, the press never leave me alone. They secretly spy, snap shots, scribble stories, and scupper my privacy. As you can see, the conversation was written up in this newspaper here. Read it at your leisure, my provincial struggling student friend. I have plenty of copies. Thank you very much. He practically threw the paper at me. The Soseki Natsume article has entered into the court record, a newspaper containing an article about a discussion between my father and Soseki-san. The debate became quite spirited. Das gucken wir uns dann auch erstmal an. Yeah! Oh Mann. Anyway, following my interview with the professor, the lady in question appeared and made a very unexpected announcement. I should like to go with everyone to see your country's coast. Those were her words. As I explained before, Miss Brett was never taken into custody. She continued to work in my laboratory, under strict surveillance, of course. At which utterance, the university immediately contacted the government to seek guidance. And the response was, permit Miss Brett to go as long as the detective accompanies her. That detective, I am at liberty to divulge, was me, Chief Inspector Satoru Hosonaga. Ich glaube, das würde heutzutage unter keinen Umständen mehr gehen, dass so eine Mörderin so frei noch herumlaufen kann, solange jemand mit dabei ist. Glaube ich nicht. thereby, the entire party departed cordially for the seaside, it seems. It was extremely challenging to clear all other members of the public from the vicinity of the beach. But fortunately, I am at peak physical fitness at the moment, so... Wirklich mit deinem Husten? I was able to carry out my duty flawlessly. Oh my, Inspector, you... Well, you do have something on your face now. Ah, how unsightly. I do apologize. Does that mean that you went to the beach too, Father? No, fortunately I had work to finish off. But unfortunately, of course, it meant that, as my assistant, Wei was invited to take my place. Of course, being a renowned author, I didn't like to decline the invitation. Okay. 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 Of course, being a renowned author, I didn't like to decline the invitation. Ah, but if only I had, I'd never have seen that awful sight. Relentlessly whacked by remorse and regret. Da sind sie wieder, die Alliterationen. Very well, I must now ask you to present your formal testimony to the court. You will give an account of all that you witnessed on your impromptu excursion to the coast. Of course, Your Excellency. Relentlessly wrecked by remorse and regret, I am. Witness testimony. The witness scene. On the day of the incident, I was ordered on a special surveillance assignment in this disguise. I just managed to catch that crab when I suddenly heard a caterwaul from behind me. What is a caterwaul? Caterwaul. Krölen. Haben wir was ausgesprochen?
Caterwaul.
Caterwaul, okay. I went into the beach hut at once, where I found the pair in question. Yes, that young girl was astride the Englishwoman, dagger in hand, as she stepped wildly. I saw blood on the blade. It proved to me that she'd stabbed the victim multiple times. Indeed, it does appear from this testimony that both witnesses here present saw it, the very moment of the heinous crime. What? Now, if you will recall, I promised evidence as well. What phrase did I use again? Ah yes, that was it. A damning evidence. What have you there, Counsel? A so-called fountain pen, is it? Correct, Your Excellency. I found it at the scene whilst examining the body. It appears that in her dying moments, with her final ounce of strength, the victim clutched a piece of evidence that would positively identify the killer. What? Your Excellency, if you would cast your eyes over the photographic print on the scene once more. Ah, goodness me. Yes, the victim is clearly grasping something quite deliberately there in her hand. That's right, the fountain pen. And if you would kindly examine the pen, Your Excellency. Ah! The owner's initials have been engraved into the ebonite barrel. R.M. Ray Mbami. The initials of the defendant. Ah, no! Ich glaube aber auch nicht, dass es Natsume oder Hosonaga waren. Glaube ich nicht. This fountain pen will be admitted immediately as critical evidence. The fountain pen has been entered into the court record. The pen that the victim was found grasping in her hand. It carries the initials RM. So, have I omitted anything? Decisive testimony and damning evidence. There's a bright blue sky outside the courthouse today. Perfect weather to ascribe guilt, I feel. I don't understand. The prosecutor Ouchie of 9 months ago had none of this man's poise. Of this poise. Poise. Gelassenheit. Okay. Counsel for the defense. You may begin your cross-examination now. Naruhodo-san! Naruhodo. That means... Oh, yes! Me! Is there another Naruhodo in my courtroom? Actually, there isn't even a single Naruhodo in your courtroom. Cousin Ryotaro, pull yourself together, please. Alright, I've seen this countless times as a judicial assistant. Find inconsistencies in the witness testimony to prove that they are lying somehow. That's all there is to it. That's how a real lawyer would handle a cross-examination. So let's see what I can do. Let's go. Cross-examination. The witness scene. On the day of the incident, I was ordered on a special surveillance assignment in this disguise.
Hold it!
In that jaunty disguise. Correct. Wait, no. I mean, it wasn't the first time I've worn a swimsuit for a dip in the ocean. It's tried and tested. Okay. Do what must be done to keep the Englishwoman under surveillance. Those were my orders that day. And this tried and tested outfit was the answer. Being able to blend flawlessly into a crowd is an important part of the detective's job. I submerged myself in the salty water, leaving only Mr. Turtle floating inconspicuously on the surface. Mr. Turtle loves the water. But there was no need for you to blend into the background on this assignment, really, was there? If that made you late arriving on the scene, I think perhaps you had your priorities wrong. Oh man. Perhaps I shouldn't pursue this line of questioning any further at the moment. I just managed to catch that crab when I suddenly heard a caterwaul from behind me.
Hold it!
Ah, you're describing the victim's screams, presumably, Suseki-san. In more literary terms, you might say it was a scream that could have pierced the heavens. Kia! Or the like. Of course, that's just a metaphor. We known authors are wont to describing things so. Ich finde dieses are wont, kann ich nicht einfach sagen are used to describing things so. Dieses want verwirrt mich, aber ist wahrscheinlich älteres Englisch, ne? Deswegen macht es Sinn. Suseki-san wasn't at all like this in England. Anyway, I spun around the noise and the beach hut immediately fell under my gaze. Ist bisschen... ich bin ein famous author. Look at me. Ist nicht mehr so ängstlich und wie im letzten Spiel. Yes, the beach hut. Also, was hat gesagt? I spun around as a noise and the beach hut immediately fell under my gaze. Okay. The area is popular with government ministers. Many have seaside retreats there for rest and recuperation. Locals are prohibited from entering the area, so it's always very quiet. The beach hut is a simple structure, erected as a place for people to change or take refuge from the sun. Although the Englishwoman commandeered the hut for herself, which meant that I was forced to change into my swimwear on the sand. Ah, I imagine it was rather embarrassing for you. Okay. Well, anyway, I tossed the crab aside and headed for the beach hut at a run. Or, in more literary terms, I decrabbed and beetled off hut-wise. I ran into the beach hut at once, where I found the pair in question.
Hold it!
Wait, by pair, you don't mean to say... But how could that be? No, you misunderstand. Alter, die Schildkröten auch auf seinem Handtuch. Finde ich sehr cool. Ich möchte auch so ein Handtuch haben. Also für die, die es nicht wissen, Schildkröten sind meine Lieblingstiere. Deswegen bin ich hier gerade... Es ist gerade ein kleiner Fanboy-Moment für mich. Es ist gerade... nice. You misunderstand. Obviously, I mean the victim and the defendant, Ray Membami-san. Oh, it would have been helpful if you could have just said that from the outset. If you jump to conclusions, you have to expect to fall flat on your face sometimes. Dear me, pinning your hopes on such an outside chance. Foolish. Very foolish. Okay. It really was an outside chance. I just wish I'd realized it before I said something silly. So, Inspector, why don't you tell the court how exactly you found the aforementioned pair in the hut? Well, it was a sorry sight. A really grisly scene. I parted the known curtain hanging in the doorway and stepped inside, only to see the defendant leaning menacingly over the lifeless body of the victim sprawled on the sand. My glasses very nearly cracked at the ominous sight that met my eyes. How thoroughly appalling! He doesn't appear to be lying here. Well, Soseki-san, can you confirm what Inspector Hosonaga is saying, I wonder? Ah, you'd like a literary man's opinion. Yes! That young girl was astride the Englishwoman, dagger in hand, as she stepped wildly.
Hold it!
Stepped wildly? You actually saw her do it? Oh, indeed. The terrible spectre, the terrible inspector, the bloody torrent, the author's torment. Eek! Every sight and every sound is still carved in my melancholy memory. Melancholy memory, so. That was my impression, at least, as a future literary sensation. Counsel, what on earth was that shrill, effeminate scream? Oh, no, what are you insinuating? I'm as manly as a Japanese I'm as manly a Japanese man as you. Was hat er gesagt? Effeminate. Wahrscheinlich verweiblicht, okay. I wonder if I might interject here, Soseki-san. Something you said is troubling me. That was my impression, were your words just now, I believe. Ah, so, do you mean to say, you're not confident that you really did see what you've described? No, I mean, yes, I know what I saw. My ears didn't deceive me when I heard that scream, hence my eyes didn't deceive me either. I could describe everything I saw vividly. I could publish it all in tomorrow's newspaper serial. It sounds as though the next installment of I Am a Cat may take a macabre turn. I think this is a fool's errand. Also, für die I Am a Cat habe ich recherchiert mittlerweile. Das ist halt ein wirklicher Roman und Soseki Natsume ist auch ein echter Autor. Oder war ein echter Autor, der lebt nicht mehr, aber ich finde es sehr interessant, dass sie ja auch reale Persönlichkeiten mit reinbringen. I think this is the fool's errand. The more we press our author friend on what he saw, the more entrenched he's going to become. Oh dear, how awkward. Was war entrenched nochmal? Entrenched. Ah. To entrench, sich verschanzen. Okay. I saw blood on the blade. It proved to me that she'd stabbed the victim multiple times. Das stimmt ja nicht, oder? Only a single wound was identified. Dann sagen wir mal Objection.
Objection!
Was war das für ein Objection? Oha. With that accusatory cry that just welled up from deep inside me, I think I finally understand. Every time Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo-san have stood here at this bench, the stakes have been very, very high indeed. Well, what's the meaning of that menacing pose, Counsel? I'd like the witness to clarify something for me. Who? What? Where? When? How? Not you, Soseki-san. This query is directed at Inspector Hosonaga. At me. In your statement just now, you said that the victim was stabbed multiple times. Yes, that's right. As I said when I entered the hut, the defendant was already standing over the victim, bloody knife in hand, like a murderous demon. And yet, that cannot be. What? Get to the point, please, Counsel. In the post-mortem report, it clearly states that the victim was stabbed one time only. Ah! Oh man, ey. In other words, Inspector Hosonaga's testimony is clearly flawed. Nice Musik. Ah! And Soseki-san. Me? You claim to have seen Membami-san in the throes of stabbing the victim. Yes I did. Wildly. But both you and the inspector confirmed the same point. That there was already blood on the knife that you saw the defendant holding. Yes, and it's quite simple. We know the murder weapon was used to stab the victim only once. Therefore, geiler Übergang gerade in der Musik. Tut mir leid, aber die Musik ist nice. There's no way there could have been blood on the knife if that thing of stabbing hadn't already occurred. Ah, true. Then what exactly is your contention, Counsel? Are you ever going to tell us? Yes, Your Excellency. There's only one logical conclusion. What Soseki-san in fact saw was not the moment that the defendant stabbed the victim at all, but the moment that the defendant in fact withdrew the blade from the victim's body. That can't be! Excellent work, Susato. You exploded at them with an objection and then proceeded to pull them apart systematically.
Objection!
Well, this takes me back. Yes, I seem to remember your cousin staged a scene much like this in that trial 9 months ago. Aber weniger souverän, würde ich sagen. Also Susato, Entschuldigung, Ryotaro macht das hier sehr viel souveräner schon, obwohl ihr erster Einspruch war. A half-witted child with a half-baked objection, attempting to steal the show. You're right, there were certain similarities. Except that so-called half-witted child managed to outwit the prosecution, who has only half a head of hair. Slander! My head is quite adequately dressed. In any case, all this talk of stabbing and withdrawing and multiple wounds, it makes not a jot of difference. What? Why not? Engage your brain, young man. When the accused first plunged the deadly weapon into the victim, that was a fatal blow. And it was that moment, just as she had withdrawn the blade, ready for her next strike, that the witnesses saw. The knife was already tainted with blood, because the accused had already stabbed the victim. Ah! What you have successfully shown with your little display is that the nostalgic author is prone to moments of extravagance. Ah! I am in agreement with the prosecution. If the defendant was seen wielding the blade at all, that is sufficient grounds for her actions to be viewed with suspicion. But if she was withdrawing the blade, then we are back where we started. Sorry? Consider this, young yokel boy. If the student girl is innocent as you claim, then why would she have pulled the blade from the victim? And with a demon's cold-blooded composure, too. The prosecution demands an explanation, and it had better be good. Why did Ray pull out the knife? Ah, yes, going for the jugular. Jugular? Jugular? Halsader. Okay. What does father mean by that? Let the court hear your answer then, counsel. The truth is, I don't really know. But I have to come up with a plausible reason here, or we don't have a case. The reason why the defendant pulled the knife blade out of the victim's body was surely so she could save her life? Aber das macht ja keinen Sinn. Aber wenn man was raussieht, dann verblutet man ja, oder nicht? According to the post-mortem report, the victim's death was not instant. That's correct. It's thought she would have remained conscious for a short while after sustaining the injury. Indeed, giving her the time to take hold of this piece of evidence that clearly indicates the killer. The point is, being a medical research assistant, Mbami-san was compelled to act when faced with a wounded victim. Instinctively, she pulled the blade out in an attempt to save Miss Brett's life. Haha! Did you hear that, Your Excellency? It would seem this is the best we can expect of this young yokel. Indeed. Is it just me or does it suddenly feel much colder in here? Your Excellency, if I may? Speak, witness. I would like another opportunity to testify. In respect to the slipshod assertion just put forward by the yokel defense counsel, I mean. Slipshod? Slipshod? Was heißt das? Slipshod. Schlampig, okay. An excellent idea, Inspector. Our young yokel hopeful has a modicum of knowledge when it comes to the law, it seems. But in matters of medicine, he appears to possess not one iota of common sense. Very well, Inspector. I will permit your request. You will testify again before the court on the subject of the defense counsel's assertion. Yes, sir. I will do so flawlessly. Witness testimony. Forensic medicine primer. Okay. Primer ist... Primer. Ich weiß, was es ist, aber es ist schwer zu erklären. Primer. Was wie ein Exkurs? Einführung, genau. Okay. Also Exkurs, Einführung, was auch immer. Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause heavy bleeding. That basic knowledge that any medical research assistant with an ounce of sense ought to know. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim. Let's not forget that the young student did have a motive for killing the victim. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago, Dr. Wilson, was the defendant's highly respected mentor. Is what you just said true, Inspector? Could pulling a knife from a wound really cause a wound to bleed heavily? Yes, think of the weapon itself as a stopper in the wound that prevents excessive blood loss. Okay, also was wir gesagt haben, aber scheinbar war es der richtige Weg. Until the doctor is ready to provide proper treatment, that stopper shouldn't be removed. Oh, I see. Ha! This is why Yokai should stay on the farm. Even a quack from some obscure mountain village would have such basic knowledge. Anyone who's ever given someone a little poke with a knife and pulled it out again knows it. Oh, well, I've never stabbed anyone, you see, or pulled a blade out of a wound, so... Of course you haven't. I didn't bring you up to behave like a bandit. Father, is it true what they are telling me? Yes, it's basic remedial knowledge of for medics. Wei would have been well aware of it. If she were to claim ignorance of such fundamentals, that would prove fatal in many ways. But then, why would Wei have done it? Could she have pulled out that knife in full knowledge that it would be fatal from a spread? I don't know. Wei never once mentioned anything about the knife to me. It seems almost impossible to believe, but could my friend actually have... Susato! Yes? Pull yourself together. Warum nennt er sie jetzt Susato? Das ist doch Selbsthass in sich selbst, so wenn man das sagt jetzt. We mustn't lose sight of why we are here. Ah! Counsel, it's time for your cross-examination. Oh, yes, Your Excellency. However, I must warn you that if your cross-examination fails to identify any issue with the established facts, I will be moving to my education immediately afterwards. I understand. Believing in your clients and fighting for the cause until the bitter end. I knew it would be hard, but I had no idea it would be this hard. Okay. Cross-examination. Forensic medicine primer.